Harry's secret new girlfriend sends Meghan into a meltdown after Lady C's reveal. Hold on to your seats because the Montecito fairy tale didn't just hit a bump. It hit a brick wall, flipped over and burst into absolute flames. If you thought the royal drama had finally cooled off, think again. The internet is in a total frenzy, and the rumors making the rounds this week are so unhinged that even Hollywood scriptwriters couldn't make this up. Word on the street is that Meghan Markle is reportedly having a complete meltdown after the discovery of what some are calling Harry's secret second life. We are talking alleged hidden text messages, secret late-night check-ins, and a mystery figure who has reportedly entered the picture, leaving Meghan utterly blindsided. And who dropped this nuclear bomb straight into the public sphere? None other than Lady Colin Campbell herself, delivering one of her most explosive jaw-dropping reveals to date. Is Prince Harry finally trying to break free from the golden cage? Or is the internet just feeding on the crumbs of a very public breakdown? Viewers everywhere are spotting the separate flights, the solo red carpet appearances, and a icy silence that's getting way too loud to ignore. Today we are pulling back the velvet curtain on the shockwaves rocking California, the cryptic clues hiding in plain sight, and the dramatic fallout that has everyone asking, is this the ultimate end of the Duke and Duchess? Grab your popcorn and stay locked in, because this one comes with absolute receipts. To truly understand how we arrived at this absolute powder keg of a moment, we have to travel back to where the cracks in this high-gloss California paint job first started to show. For years, the global public was sold a very specific, meticulously crafted fairy tale. We were told this was the ultimate love story, a modern royal romance so powerful that it forced a prince of the realm to turn his back on his own bloodline, his ancient heritage, and his entire homeland just to protect the woman of his dreams. Every single time they stepped onto a carpet, every time a camera flashed, it was the exact same theatrical display. The intense, white-knuckle hand-holding, the adoring gazes, the rehearsed smiles, and the constant narrative that it was always them against the big bad cruel world. But behind those towering security gates in Montecito, under the shadow of 16 bathrooms and endless palm trees, a very different story was quietly simmering. Enter Lady Colin Campbell, the undisputed queen of royal commentary who has spent decades serving up tea so hot it practically melts the fine china. When Lady C speaks, the internet doesn't just listen. It stops dead in its tracks. And her recent string of jaw-dropping revelations has sent shockwaves right through the heart of the Montecito machine. She didn't just hint at trouble in paradise. She essentially dropped a bunker-buster bomb right onto their carefully manicured lawn. According to the whisper circulating through those ultra-exclusive British and American high society circles, Harry hasn't just been feeling a little homesick or taking a few solo trips to blow off steam. The rumor mill is churning with claims that the Duke of Sussex has allegedly built himself a completely separate emotional ecosystem, away from his wife. We are talking about allegations of hidden phones, secret text exchanges, and a mysterious figure who represents everything the current Duchess is not. When news of these alleged secret texts broke through the digital grapevine, the reaction across social media wasn't shock or disbelief. It was a collective nod of recognition. Viewers who have been watching this soap opera unfold over the last few years immediately started connecting the dots. Because let's be honest, the track record here speaks volumes. Look at how Meghan's past relationships and friendships have played out over the years. Before she met Harry, she had a whole circle of people who thought they were in her inner sanctum. Her ex-husband Trevor Engelson, her old friends from her acting days, people she shared meals with, worked with, and leaned on while climbing the slippery ladder of industry success. And what happened to them the second they were no longer required for the next rung on that ladder? They were ghosted, erased, and left in the dust like yesterday's tabloid headlines. Her own family, from her father Thomas Markle to her half-sister Samantha, were completely cut off the moment things got uncomfortable for the public brand. So when commentators call her a ruthless operator who expunges people the second they lose their utility, it isn't just internet hate. It's a pattern that has been documented again and again. Now imagine bringing that exact same corporate, cold calculating energy into a marriage with a prince who spent his entire life suffering from intense media paranoia and emotional trauma. For a while, Harry seemed completely enchanted, willing to burn down every bridge he had ever crossed just to play the chivalrous knight rescuing his damsel. But as the years rolled on, the fairy tale started looking less like a romantic rescue and more like a hostage situation. The wild, fun-loving, barefoot prince who used to race around Africa with Chelsea Davy, A woman who famously cared 0% about royal protocol, tiaras or palace politics, was suddenly replaced by a guarded, anxious man standing 3 paces behind his wife, looking like he needed permission just to speak to a microphone. Chelsea Davy was the one that got away, the carefree Zimbabwe-born blonde who gave Harry a taste of real freedom without the Hollywood cameras rolling in the background. Then came Cressida Bonus, another free-spirited woman who looked at the nightmare of royal fishbowl living and said thanks, but no thanks. Both of those women loved Harry for who he was, not for what his title could do for their personal brand. But then came Meghan, who arrived with a full PR machine, a penchant for designer labels, and a burning desire to monetize the royal legacy on a global scale. So when Lady C dropped the bombshell that Harry may have found comfort in the company of someone who is his own age, someone completely outside of the toxic celebrity vortex, it hit the internet like a freight train. The allegations suggest that this isn't just a fleeting distraction. It's an emotional lifeline for a man who feels completely swallowed up by his wife's unyielding ambition. According to these rumors, Meghan allegedly discovered the private messages on Harry's phone during a period of intense separate schedules. Imagine the scene inside that Montecito mansion. The sudden realization that the man you thought you completely controlled, the prince you uprooted from his kingdom, might actually be looking for an escape hatch. The reports leaking out from so-called insiders paint a picture of total chaos behind closed doors. We are hearing about explosive arguments, furious late-night calls to crisis management teams, and a desperate scramble to figure out how to spin a story that could instantly obliterate their entire joint multi-million-dollar empire. Because let's face it, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex don't exist in a vacuum. Their entire commercial value, the Netflix deals, the podcast contracts, the brand endorsements, is built entirely on the illusion of their unshakable union. If you remove the love story, what are you left with? Just 2 extremely polarizing public figures competing for headlines while their joint venture collapses into a pile of legal filings and public ridicule. The immediate aftermath of this alleged discovery reportedly sent Meghan into a tailspin of epic proportions. Friends of the couple, or at least those who still claim to have a window into their secretive world, suggest that the fury wasn't just about betrayal. It was about losing complete control over the narrative. For years, Meghan has been the director, the producer, and the star of the Sussex show. She is the one who steps in front of the cameras, the one who grabs the microphone, the one who physically guides Harry by the back or the elbow at every public appearance. To suddenly find out that her husband might have an entirely separate life unfolding in secret, right under her nose, is the ultimate slap in the face to someone whose entire brand relies on total dominance over her environment. And where does Lady C fit into all of this? She has been dropping cryptic warnings for months, dropping subtle hints that the marriage was functionally over long before any secret texts were ever mentioned. She has repeatedly pointed out that the public is only seeing the front-facing PR theater, while behind the scenes, legal teams and publicists have been quietly preparing for the mother of all separations. The chatter online has turned into an absolute inferno, with amateur sleuths picking apart every single photo, every solo trip, and every body language cue from the last 12 months to see where the facade began to crumble. And as the dust continues to kick up over those explosive claims, the story only gets wilder the deeper you dig into the paper trail of their recent lives. If you take a step back and examine the past year through a cold, analytical lens, the timeline of this alleged split doesn't just make sense, it looks like a masterclass in slow-motion asset division. For months, attentive royal watchers have been pointing out that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex haven't been acting like a united front. They've been operating like 2 rival corporate entities forced to share a zip code. The public saw the grand unified brand fracture right in front of their eyes when the joint accounts vanished, replaced by separate ventures, distinct press teams, and a calendar so wildly out of sync it looked like they were living in different time zones. While the internet was still digesting the bombshell about private messages and secret text chains, a series of leaked reports from alleged Hollywood insiders began shedding light on what was really happening behind those gated Montecito walls. Rumors began circulating about staggering expenditures, chaotic administrative overlap, and a lifestyle so lavish it was burning through money faster than a private jet burns aviation fuel. Anonymous sources claiming to be former staff members, because let's be real, the turnover rate at the Sussex office is practically a legendary joke in the PR industry, began whispering about a culture of pure, unadulterated panic. We're talking about allegations of emergency strategy meetings called at 3 in the morning, relentless demands for positive media coverage, and an atmosphere where staff were allegedly walking on eggshells, waiting for the next explosive outburst. One particularly spicy claim floating through the tabloid pipeline suggests that the sheer scale of Meghan's personal spending had become a major point of friction between the couple. From five-figure designer wardrobes worn for 20-minute photo ops to extravagant security detail demands that would make a world leader blush, the financial pressure on the couple was reaching a fever pitch. Harry, who grew up with royal accountants handling every penny of his vast trust funds, was suddenly confronted with the harsh, cold reality of commercial American capitalism. You don't just get to live like royalty without a crown. You have to pay for it every single day. And when the big Spotify contract collapsed and Netflix started tightening the purse strings, the financial reality hit like a bucket of ice water. The illusion of unlimited wealth was cracking, and with it, the emotional glue holding the marriage together. Public reactions to these leaked revelations ranged from absolute satisfaction among their longtime critics to pure agony among their die-hard supporters. The internet erupted into a war of words, with commentators taking to social media to analyze every single detail of their independent travel schedules. Remember that bizarre solo tour Meghan undertook, jetting off to Chicago and Geneva for high-profile solo engagements, leaving Harry thousands of miles away? At the time, PR reps claimed it was all part of a strategic brand diversification. But looking back through the lens of Lady C's latest explosive claims, critics are now calling it what it really was: a trial separation dressed up as a corporate rebrand. While Meghan was busy attempting to establish herself as a global lifestyle maven, complete with her high-end jam jars and polished red carpet appearances, Harry was repeatedly spotted flying back across the Atlantic. He was making frantic, solitary appearances in London courts, fighting his endless legal battles against the British press, and desperately trying to repair the scorched earth relationship he left behind with his old circle of friends. Witnesses in the UK reported seeing a prince who looked thoroughly exhausted, emotionally drained, and completely out of his depth. The wild, charismatic royal who once captivated audiences around the world was gone, replaced by a guarded figure who looked as though he was constantly looking over his shoulder, waiting for the next directive from Montecito. Anonymous commentary from people claiming to be connected to Harry's old Eton and military brotherhood painted a heartbreaking picture of a man isolated from everyone who truly knew him. One alleged former buddy quoted in a British tabloid bluntly stated that Harry had become completely unrecognizable. He was described as a guy who used to love a laugh, a beer and a casual weekend in the countryside, but was now trapped in a high-strung, hyper-managed Hollywood bubble where every conversation had to be vetted for brand alignment. To these old friends, the news of secret texts wasn't a shock. It was the inevitable breakdown of a man who realized he had swapped a golden royal cage for a gilded California prison. And then came the absolute media nightmare surrounding the infamous Paris Fashion Week appearance that set the comment sections on fire. When Meghan posted that now infamous video relaxing in the back of a luxury vehicle, videoing her designer heels with the Paris city lights sliding past the window, critics were quick to point out how dangerously close she was to the site of Princess Diana's tragic loss. The public reaction was swift, ruthless, and overwhelmingly negative. Commentators labeled the move completely tone-deaf, with some going so far as to call it a desperate bid for attention that completely disregarded Harry's deepest childhood trauma. When her team tried to smooth over the situation by claiming she had no idea where she was in the city, the internet collectively burst out laughing. How does anyone, especially someone married to Princess Diana's son, not realize they are filming social media content near the very underpass that defined their husband's life history? The optics were catastrophic. To critics, it showcased a chilling lack of empathy. To supporters, it was an innocent mistake blown out of proportion. But to Harry, according to the rumor mill, it was the moment the veil pulled back completely. It underscored a growing realization that the tragedy that shaped his entire life was being used as a backdrop for digital clout. The outrage didn't stop at the Paris stunt. Every single move made by the Duchess seemed to trigger a new wave of public backlash. Critics lined up to call out what they viewed as a total abuse of their platform, accusing the pair of trading state-level royal status for commercial gain, while constantly playing the victim. High-profile figures in the American broadcast world began speaking out openly, dropping labels like malignant narcissist and opportunistic climber on live television without missing a beat. The sheer volume of negative commentary reached a point where even the most aggressive damage control public relations firms couldn't plug the leaks. Inside the Montecito headquarters, the atmosphere reportedly turned toxic. Sources claim that Meghan was furious that the public narrative was sliding completely out of her grasp. For someone who thrives on controlling every single frame, every interview, and every press release, watching the internet turn her into the villain of a global farce was intolerable. She reportedly blamed the press, she blamed the palace, she blamed the algorithm, and eventually the pressure turned inward toward Harry. The blame game was in full swing, and Harry was caught right in the crosshairs of an epic meltdown that was rapidly outgrowing the control of their legal advisors and Hollywood agents. As the walls continue to close in on this unraveling narrative, the legal and financial fallout from this escalating nightmare is shaping up to be far more devastating than a mere tabloid headache. Behind the high-stakes entertainment law firms in Los Angeles and the ancient, quiet chambers of London legal offices, a quiet panic has taken hold. Insiders report that high-level crisis management executives are currently locked in emergency consultations, desperately trying to map out a contingency strategy for what many now believe is an inevitable, highly litigious split. When a multi-million-dollar brand built entirely on the concept of global togetherness begins to rupture, the legal entanglements aren't just messy, they are an absolute financial minefield. We are talking about complex, multi-layered contracts with major streaming giants, publishing houses, and global talent agencies, agreements that were signed with the explicit understanding that the Duke and Duchess were a package deal. If the core of that package deal fractures under the weight of alleged secret infidelities, hidden texts, and public meltdowns, the financial liability could be staggering. Reports are already circulating through corporate media circles that breach of contract clauses could be triggered if the joint ventures collapse prematurely. Netflix executives, who have already weathered years of mixed ratings and canceled projects, are reportedly watching this unfolding soap opera with extreme skepticism. The romantic docuseries that once served as the cornerstone of their deal now looks less like an inspiring love story and more like a carefully edited piece of historical fiction, leaving executives questioning whether any future joint content is even viable. Meanwhile, the hypothetical legal battles surrounding assets, custody, and royal titles are already sending shivers down the spines of palace aides back in London. If a formal separation were to occur, the question of where the children, Archie and Lilibet, will be raised becomes an immediate diplomatic nightmare. Will they remain in California under the watchful eye of Hollywood publicity machine, or will Harry push to bring his children back to the safety and tradition of his British roots? Sources within legal circles suggest that any attempt by Harry to relocate his children back to the United Kingdom would trigger one of the most brutal, high-profile custody battles the world has ever witnessed. Meghan, who has meticulously built her life in the Golden State, is unlikely to let her children, and her ultimate link to the British monarchy, be whisked away across the Atlantic without an absolute legal war of attrition. The fallout doesn't end with contracts and custody. It extends directly into the volatile world of international public opinion and governmental scrutiny. For years, critics have questioned how a member of the British royal family, who retains his succession rights and official titles, can operate as a commercial entity on American soil. With Harry's ongoing legal battles regarding his security detail, his visa applications, and his public spats with the press, politicians on both sides of the Atlantic are beginning to voice serious concerns. In the UK, parliamentarians have periodically floated the idea of formal legislation to strip the couple of their royal titles entirely if their commercial antics continue to degrade the institution. If the public backlash reaches a boiling point over these latest rumors, the British monarchy may finally be forced to cut the cord completely, removing any last remaining formal connection between Montecito and the crown. The emotional toll on Harry, according to those observing from afar, is reaching a critical threshold. The image of the once beloved prince, a man who served in the military, joked with world leaders, and possessed an effortless magnetic charm, has been virtually erased. In his place stands a deeply isolated figure, who appears to be carrying the weight of 1,000 bad decisions. The relentless court battles against newspapers, the public betrayal of his own brother Prince William, and the complete destruction of his relationship with his father King Charles, have left him stranded on a media island with very few true allies left to call. When commentators describe him as desperately lonely, sitting by the phone in a mansion he barely seems to enjoy, It hits home because the visual evidence matches the claim. He gave up his country, his family, and his reputation for a fairy tale that appears to be dissolving into thin air. And what about Meghan's trajectory as this scandal deepens? The Duchess, who once envisioned herself as a global humanitarian figure on the level of world leaders, finds herself increasingly cornered by the very media machine she sought to master. The constant rebranding from actress to royal, from royal to podcaster, from podcaster to lifestyle influencer, has created a sense of fatigue even among the most forgiving audiences. When high-profile commentators label her as opportunistic or call out her ruthlessness on national television, it reflects a broader cultural shift. The public is no longer buying the polished, hyper-controlled image. Every single move, every calculated post, and every solo appearance is now viewed with intense skepticism, making it nearly impossible for her to launch a new venture without it being dissected for ulterior motives. The whispers surrounding Lady C's explosive reveals have created a feedback loop that neither publicist nor crisis manager can seem to interrupt. The speculation about another woman, a secret communication line, and an enraged spouse is no longer just a rumor running wild on social media message boards. It has become the central storyline defining their current existence. Every silence from Montecito is read as confirmation of trouble. Every forced public appearance is read as damage control. The couple has backed themselves into a corner where they cannot win. If they stay together, critics will call it a business arrangement to save